Good morning, class. This is page 22 and 23 in your notebook, and it's going to be standard form graphing. Standard form is when an equation is in the form with x and y on the same side, such as ax plus by is equal to c. Alright, there's a couple different ways you can approach this type of an equation. The first thing you can do with it is find the x and y intercepts. So some questions will just say, find me the x and y intercepts, and won't ask you to graph. So when you want to find an x-intercept, remember that's the place where a graph crosses the x-axis. So if that's a new term to you, make sure you write that down. X-intercept is where a graph crosses x-axis. And then, of course, we have the y-intercept, which we already have talked about when we graphed slope-intercept form. Y-intercept is where a graph crosses the y-axis. Okay, and then let's look inside, and we're going to see how we find the x and y intercepts. Oops. Sorry. There we go. Okay, so at the top it says to find the x-intercept. So before I fill in the blanks, let's think. If you want an x-intercept, that means you're anywhere on the x-axis. So points such as this would be 1, 0. Point such as this is 2, 0. Point such as this is -1, 0. So what do you notice every time in here? Our y is 0. So to find the x-intercept, sub 0 in for the y and solve for x. So likewise, to find the y-intercept, sub 0 in for x and solve for y. All right, so let's give that a try. So number one, let's start with finding the x-intercept. The x-intercept, I'm going to write this out first. So x-intercept means I'm putting 0 in for the y. So I have 2x plus 7 times 0 equals 28. All right, 7 times 0 is going to wipe out. 0 times that cancels out. So I'm left with 2x is equal to 28. Divide both sides by 2. 28 divided by 2 gives me 14. So now I know that this graph crosses the x-axis at 14. Beware on Math Excel, it might say write it as an ordered pair. If it says write as an ordered pair, you got to take this 14 and turn it into an ordered pair. Remember, it's an x-intercept, so that means it's 14, 0. All right, now let's find the y-intercept. Now we're going to sub 0 in for the x. So y-intercept, here's our equation. It's going to say 2 times 0 plus 7y equals 28. All right, same thing, cancels out. 7y is equal to 28. Divide both sides by 7. Y is equal to 4. Ordered pair for this one, remember x was 0, so ordered pair is 0, 4. All right, good. So these other ones are, or this next one's a lot like it. Let's try again. I need an x-intercept. If you need an x-intercept, remember you have to leave x in the equation. So that means we need to get rid of the y, which means sub 0 in for y. So -4x plus 4 times 0 equals 12. All right, cancel out. -4x equals 12. Divide by -4. X equals -3. Y-intercept, putting 0 in for the x this time, because I have to keep y in the equation. So -4 times 0. And hopefully you're catching on and saying, do we have to keep writing that term times 0? No. So if you want to start canceling that term out of the equation from the beginning, that's fine. All right, divide both sides by 4. Y is equal to 3. So x-intercept -3, y-intercept is +3. All right, last one, number 3. So this is in slope-intercept form. We can still find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. Let's start with the y-intercept, because you should be already telling me what the y-intercept is. If it's in if it's in slope-intercept form, we already know -2 is the y-intercept. So I don't have to do any work for that one. However, I don't have the x-intercept yet. Now remember, to get the x-intercept, put 0 in for y. So 0 equals 4x minus 2. All right, so now I would add 2, 2 equals 4x, divide both sides by 4, and I'm going to get a fraction for this one. 2 fourths ends up being 1/2, so 1/2 equals x. So our x-intercept is 1/2 comma 0. Y-intercept was already up there, it's 0 comma negative 2. All right, cool. Now that you can find x and y intercepts, now let's move to the bottom where it says, how do you graph lines using intercept method? So when you do this, things will be in the equation of standard form, which is ax plus by equals c, and I call this the cover-up method. You're going to do what we just did up above, but you're going to take that information and put it on a graph now. So I call it cover-up method. I'll show you in with the next example why I call it that. So open this up. Okay, here's a new one. It does not say find the x-intercept, x and y-intercepts, but that's what we're going to do to graph. So if you are going to try graphing lines using intercepts, then you're going to find the intercepts first. So you saw up here when I kept putting 0 in for that term, it wiped it out. So 7 times 0 is gone. So what the cover-up method is, you take your finger and you cover up the term that's going to be subbed in for 0. So for instance, on this one, it's just like a little shortcut. So this one is in standard form, so I can cover this up, which basically means I'm putting 0 in for y, so cover that up, and I get 3x equals 6. And then divide both sides by 3. X is equal to 2. So since x is left, this is your x-intercept. So now I go on my x-axis to 2 and I put a dot. All right, we're going to do the same thing with our y-intercept. So this time I'm covering up the 3x, or if you think from up above, you're putting 0 in for the x. Put 0 in for the x, you're left with negative y equals 6. Divide both sides by negative 1, y equals negative 6. So now you go on your y-axis to negative 6. And I remember back to geometry that it takes 2 points to make a line. So there's my 2 points. And now I have a graph. Voila. I didn't have to find the slope at all. I can get the slope because you could just count the dots now, but you don't have to have a slope to graph this line. All right, let's try one more, number 2. So cover up this. We're going to get our x-intercept first. So negative 5x is equal to 20. So cover-up method is the same thing as getting intercepts. We just didn't write it all out. Divide by negative 5, divide by negative 5, x equals negative 4. Okay, now we need a y-intercept. Cover up your x term or put 0 in for x. 4y equals 20, divide by 4, y is equal to 5. So x-axis negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Y-axis positive 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got your 2 dots. That's enough to make a line. And there is our graph. All right, that is going to get glued in your notebook on 23. That is the bell in the video, so don't get out of your seat. That is not your bell. And then the other thing I want to warn you about, sometimes the intercept method gives us fractions here, and fractions are not easy to graph. So even though you might say, well, this intercept method's super easy, let's use it all the time, it does not always work because sometimes you get fractions, and that's when you have to try a different method. So anyway, for now, that's how you're going to do this. I got a little practice for you, but glue that in on 23 so you don't lose it.